Hello. Happy Pride Day. Congratulations, America. Yeah. And a lot of our people are down in San Francisco attending what is probably going to be the most epic Pride celebration ever. We'll celebrate it here at our picnic. It's, bittersweet times we're in our country. Yeah. And I was thinking about the topic from our book, the Kybalion, because the topic for this week is the divine paradox. Right? Because on one hand, it's surprising to me that the world power that stands for freedom and equality should struggle so much with freedom and equality. And on the other hand, it kind of makes a paradoxical sense. And what I mean by that is, it is often the case that the thing I value the most is the thing that I struggle with the most. Sometimes it's my weakness, it's my Achilles heel. And I see that. I talk to people who value health, but they struggle to eat well. Or people who value spirituality, but they struggle to maintain a daily spiritual practice and to be as high-minded as they think they should be. Or people who value sobriety, but they know they can't risk flirting with substances at all. It's their Achilles heel. So I see what is happening in our country as the working through of these weaknesses that are connected, paradoxically, to what we value. And we do value equality and freedom. We're working it out. We're working through it. And we may not yet have equality for all, but last week we got equality for more. And we may not have seen an end to racism. But last week we saw an outpouring of heart and love that has had the effect of shaking us up and waking us up both to the power and warmth of the human heart and to the depth of racism in our country. Bill Nye. Researchers have proven scientifically that humans are all one people. The color of our ancestors' skin, and ultimately my skin and your skin, is a consequence of ultraviolet light, of latitude and climate. Despite our recent sad conflicts here in the United States, there really is no such thing scientifically as race. We are one species. Each of us is more alike than we are different. We all came from Africa. We're all made of the same stardust. We're all going to live and die on the same planet, a pale blue dot in the vastness of space. We have to work together. Whoa. Well, there may be no such thing as race, but there sure is such a thing as racism. I love that he says we are all made of the same stardust. That resonates with what we teach here. We're all made of what our founder calls the ultimate stuff. And we have to work together. And in metaphysics, we see that working together as having two modes, two planes where we have to work together on. There is the inner life. That's how we say change your thinking. And then there is the outer life. Change your habits. If you only change your habits without changing your thinking, very soon they work their magic and come back. So we have to work in both planes. And the authors of the book say, but be wise about it. Be very careful, because in and outer life, one is the cause of the other and not the other way around. Inner life is the cause of outer life. Thinking is the foundation of habits. Changing habits without changing the thinking. So we have to work in both zones. And he says in the book, on the chapter about divine paradox, that this is a mental universe and yet it's very real. That's the paradox. So we get to think of experience, the experience of being like a projection on a screen, and yet it's real enough. So imagine that the original pure, bright light of divinity, of creation, is the source of this projection. And it never changes. It is permanent. It has no opposite and no off switch. It is everlasting. And it shines through something to create the image. Now, in the old days, it used to be a film. Remember projectors and films? It's all digital now. But remember the film. The pure bright light shines through the film to create the movie. Now, the pure bright light stays permanently the same. The film, no matter what you put over it, cannot change the pure bright light. The film produces the moving or static pictures on the screen, and you know how compelling the movies can be. Right? And when we're all emotional and wrapped up with the characters and what's happening and fighting the villain and rooting for the heroes, who's thinking about the pure bright light? We're thinking about the action. That's why looking for the source, the thing itself, looking for the source in the images on the screen is so very interesting, isn't it? It's like the song we just heard. The lyrics say, is it in the sunlit meadow? Is it in the rocks and trees? Is it in the blue and yellow? Is it in the one who sees? This radiance I recognize even when I close my eyes. Is it in the words you've spoken, as trackless in their flight as birds? Is it in the silence broken? Is it in between the words? Where is it? You see, when you're looking at the movie. See, it's complicated. Because the images of life are like hints at what their origin is. They're hints. And sometimes when we look at life, what we see is so pleasing and we can see. And sometimes, and rightly so, we are disturbed by what we see, and we may want to change some of what we see on the screen of life. And in this teaching, we teach that we've found that the most practical way to do that is to look at the filter, the film that is over the lens, because we can't change the original pure bright light. And we call this filter consciousness or awareness or attention or point of view or thinking or belief system. It's the mental filter of our mind which projects onto the screen of life using the one pure bright light as its source. And that's why we are inclined to think that working inwardly in consciousness is so very, very, very important. And the paradox is that even so, not like the movies, we actually are in the drama of the projection. We live and breathe and move in it. So we cannot abandon our part in the real world either. We must do what our duty is to do in the social setting. Those are the words of our founder. Without abandoning what is our duty to do in the work of mind, consciousness. We've got to do both. It's not either and or. We can't just sit back and make affirmations. Neither can we run around the world changing the world without consciousness. Well, we can. We do that, actually. That was funny. There's a very feisty metaphysical writer for your Sunday morning inspiration, Gregory Flood. He says, I believe that directed mental work must be done to eradicate these negative ideas, the filter, in us. If nothing is done to eliminate them, then they will continue to be the foundation of our thinking and our life experience. I believe that much of the self-depreciation, loneliness, fizzled relationships, substance abuse, disease, and suicide among people is not the product of the situational particulars of our lifestyle, but rather the result of an inward conviction on our part that we are doing something perverted, just living our lives. Whoa. It's feisty. But really, you see, the filter is the use of the pure bright light, the filter of there is something wrong with you. Oh, what a filter. So he says mental work must be done. What mental work must be done? Well, I think of it about this like this way. Be mindful, Edward. Pay attention. Especially in this world of increasingly complicated information overload. Pay attention. Be mindful of what I take in. Be mindful of what I let take root. Be mindful of what I fall for. Be mindful of what I plant purposely and nurture. Pay attention to the filter. And then he says, directed mental work. What's that mean? Well, directed means on target, disciplined, regular, not random. We can't afford to be random in this ocean of information going on around us. It's got to be on purpose. So how do you do that? Well, I don't know, because there's no one size fits all, but I know how I do it. This is how I do it. I take time regularly to use my infinite imagination, and you have one too, to imagine our nation as actually a place where freedom and equality reigns, rather than using my time to regularly dwell only on the newsreel of Facebook and TV. See, what am I saturating my mind with? I take time every morning, very quietly, I don't make a big fuss about it, to start the engine of my mind in the right direction. By reminding myself with a question, Edward, what do you believe in? Which is a different question from, Edward, what do you see going on in the world? Which is real as it is, but I want to start from, what do I believe? Every morning. And he says we are to eradicate negative ideas. Ooh, it's tough. Those are harsh words. You know what eradicate means? Eliminate, destroy, exterminate, remove. Harsh. I just recently saw the Book of Mormon. Has anybody seen that? 3 people. I think lots of people are shy to say it, but don't you feel nervous in the audience? Did you really just say that? Well, they've got this one song. It says it's a neat little Mormon trick to catch negative ideas and squash them out. And I thought, well, it's not only Mormons. And it's one of our neat little tricks to just deny something and squash it and be too harsh. No, eliminate, destroy, exterminate. It's too violent. I haven't had much success with that. Here's what I do instead. I try to displace the tendency of thinking a certain way by giving it less and less room in my mind, by withholding attention from those thoughts. I'll tell you what I mean. I'm trying to train my cat right now. It is not like training a dog. You have to be super patient, but you know the principle is the same. The principle is this: reward the behavior you want to see more of, and don't respond to behavior that you want to see less of. Actually, a relationship coach once said, you can train partners in the same way. It works the same with partners, because you just reward the behavior you like with love and attention. It's kind of true of me. I mean, if somebody says to me, hey, I really appreciated when you did X, Y, or Z, I'm instantly more inclined to repeat that. So when I notice my mind going down a dark and dingy alley, I interrupt it, not with violence, not with a goal to eradicate or destroy or hunt down. No, I interrupt it very gently, and I say to myself some of the words we learn here. For example, I might say, there is one pure bright light shining through me. And today it shines through the filter of, and then I decide. What? My compassion. There's one pure bright light shining through me, and today it is shining through the filter of my compassion. And then I do what is mine to do in the social setting. See, that's not the same as just sit back and think happy thoughts and pretend nothing's happening. It's impossible to be in this world and not notice where there is work to do in the social setting. 49 million Americans are going hungry. It's a staggering number. 49 million. 750 million people worldwide do not have access to clean water, which is directly connected to high infant mortality rates. The United States incarcerates over 2 million people, disproportionately African American. Over 500,000 Americans do not have a home. Over 31% of our food in the United States is thrown away. Now, 31% may be a number that doesn't register, so I went and looked it up. What does that mean in actual pounds of food? 133 billion pounds of food is thrown away. So when I read something like that, and it distresses me to the point where I feel overwhelmed, I take a moment to interrupt the thought and announce silently, there is only one, whatever it is, one pure bright light, in and through all people, common to all things, and today it is shining through me, through the filter of my compassion. And I dwell in that, but I don't rest there. I get up and speak up and do what is mine to do. And I do it because I believe that when we interrupt the habits of our thought and our activity that have gotten us to the place where we are as a species, and mindfully, gently, and definitely displace them with our hope, that we begin to produce new projections of collaboration. And when we keep at it, and we keep it up, by putting our attention repeatedly again and again on what has heart value, we displace the voice of dissension and destruction, and it will lose its appeal, and it will lose its ability to frighten us. A long time ago, at the time of the Iron Curtain crisis, our founder, Ernest Holmes, wrote these words, which might as well have been written for today, saying, the world is perhaps at the point of the greatest crisis in all human history. And there seems to be two attitudes we can assume. One is calmness, faith, and conviction, and the other would be despair. You see, I think about that. There is one pure, bright light shining through me. And today it shines through the filter of my despair. Because that's how it works. And the pure, bright light remains unchanged and untouched and immovable. So he says, and despair is unthinkable, even though it remains paradoxically an option. Let each in his or her own way dedicate time, services, hope to spiritual conviction, to the common cause of liberty and justice for all. And let us work without tiring and pray without ceasing. And he urged us to form the habit of taking definite time every single day to contemplate peace and to imagine our leaders everywhere being guided and inspired by the all-sustaining wisdom of ordinary goodness. And above all, he urged us to nurture peace in our own minds, to take responsibility for our own filter, and to pray that we do not become confused in our own thought by the deluge around us. But he didn't stop there. He told us what ancient teachings have affirmed, like this: faith without works is dead. Ours is not a teaching of sit around. So not only ought we to work on the inner, but we ought also to act on the outer, so that in our lives, in our actual lives, we are contributing to a world that matches the vision that we see. So what is the action that you should do? Well, I don't really know. It's not my area of expertise. And there's no one size fits all. I mean, I can say it's probably something like this. Vote. Take an interest in what your children are learning in school and speak to it. Make your voice and desire known in local governance. Attend a city council meeting. Volunteer at a non-profit organization that resonates with your values and dreams and help them do the work in the world that you wish to see be the standard. Volunteer in our own youth and family ministry. Recycle. Write to a congressperson or any leader anywhere. Marry a homosexual. See, to tell you what to do is not my department. Right? Otherwise, we would tell each other what to do. But to explore, and this is what my job is, to explore with you the workings of our inner life so that we can investigate the film. Is it a worthy film? Is it a worthy point of view? Is it a worthy thought to think? So we can do what is necessary to displace it gently, and most importantly, to keep remembering that at the root of everything we see, at the root of every single thing that we see is one pure bright light. So that whatever you choose to do in the social setting, you'll do it from the perspective of unity and oneness, so that your inner work will put you in the position to methodically, over and over, do the courageous thing, and that is to drop us and them thinking. To drop enemy images and displace it gently. He goes on to say, for if the whole nation works together and prays together, a great moral and spiritual power, an actual soul force, will penetrate the whole world, helping to bring confidence and calm judgment until the crisis shall have passed. I believe that. I think it's our hope and salvation right here. That we do whatever we do from a consciousness of oneness. Remembering that it begins inside. So I invite you now to take a breath in with me and exhale so that we may begin inside. And I'm remembering the words of the song. And I cannot see how I missed this before. Who I am is always here. Of this I'm sure. And I cannot see how I missed this before. The love we are is always here. Of this I'm sure. And so we take this moment in prayer to dwell upon the one eternal, pure, bright light of creation. One meaning no other. The everywhere present bright light of creation. Everywhere present meaning it is at the center of everything. And wherever we are, that is where the center is. And as we dwell upon that, it convinces us to remember that the pure bright light is available to us always. We begin to renew our sense of excitement at what we might bring, what we might birth into the world by changing filters by adopting new perspectives, by dropping enemy images, by developing compassion, by seeking unity, we begin again to fall in love with this idea of a world that works for everyone. We let our infinite imaginations realize or imagine or think of this world where justice and equality is the norm, where freedom is an ordinary state, where forgiveness is an ordinary practice, where resources are cared for, honored, respected, and shared in a sense of ongoing generosity. We let our mind's eye see a world in which there is a resurgence and re-emphasis on art and aesthetics and beauty and culture and music and dance and love. We let our minds range imaginatively, seeing all the people of the earth in their diversity, being inspired from within by their own spiritual wisdom. And even as we imagine this way, we allow space in our prayer for the asking of this question. And how will this vision and the pure bright light within me inspire me to take action in the world? What is mine to do? In deepest gratitude for this time in prayer, we release this word into that aspect of divinity we call the law as a way of remembering that no stress, it is already accomplished because we have already imagined. And together we say, and so it is.